And here's your host, Goody.
Welcome to the Gabbin with Goody Podcast. I'm your host, Goody. Today on the podcast, we have my good friend Jan. Thank you, Jan, for opening up your house for the podcast for the second time. Last year, we had your husband Bill on. We talked a little bit about some of the stuff that we'll talk about today. But now we're going to get into a little bit more detail. Like I said, a year ago, Bill was on the podcast. He come up to me, said that you had interest in coming on the podcast to talk a little bit more about mental health, which has been a big part of the podcast. But on the more of the resource side, you being a member of the critical incident stress management team here in Massachusetts, as well as knowing some more of the details about the Struggle Well program. And that being said, told me that you would like to come on again and talk about it. And like I said before, the podcast has been very open about the advocacy for mental health and being an advocate to reaching out to people who may need the services, and kind of use this podcast as like a stepping stone to see the types of things that you could do if you are struggling with whatever it may be, at-home stuff, on-the-job stuff. We tend to obviously talk about more about the firefighting aspect of it, being firefighters and having firefighters on. So, Jan, let's talk a little bit about the critical incident stress management team. How long have you been on the team? What kind of got you into it? And and then we'll go from there.
So I did my initial CISM training back in 1999 when I was in paramedic school. While doing paramedic school and working full time, I did I think at the time it was a 2-day class. They were separated then. It was a 2-day class initially. Then there was like a 1-day peer-to-peer class, and there were just some different ones. They now have, it's all called a GRIN class. It's a 3-day class. It's group and individual. Critical incident stress management is for doing debriefings, diffusings, one-on-ones, things like that. So I did mine, like I say, way back in 99. Joined the team then, wasn't super active, going through medic school, being a new medic, getting hired on the fire department in Ludlow. I was a call firefighter somewhere else at the time. And then, so I wasn't super active until probably maybe 10 years ago or so. Really started to get much more active in it again and really participating in a lot. Not just me, I think the team itself also, in the last probably maybe a couple of years before that, started to get much more active, and the management really kind of did a really good job of getting organized and having a really strong resource for stress management and critical incident issues in the Western Mass region, which is honestly, we cover a lot. I can't tell you off the top of my head. The people who run the team can tell you how many communities and whatever we serve. I don't remember off the top of my head, but basically we go from a little east of here all the way to Vermont, New York, etc. border, that whole, everything in the western part of the state. Yeah. So there's several teams, there's 5 teams or something throughout Massachusetts, but the Western Mass team is it's a big team, and it's regionally the area is huge. So it's not unusual for me to go do a debriefing in, Pittsfield or Great Barrington or something like that. It's we are all over the place.
Do you find yourself, how do I want to put this? Did you find that, I know you said in the beginning, the team wasn't as active. Do you feel like now it's become more of a, we'll just say acceptable thing?
I think part of it is that it's more accepted. Part of it is that there were kind of a couple different entities trying to run teams, maybe even some people kind of trying to do their own thing, and it just wasn't gelling well. So once it was kind of now solidified as like really definitively this is the Western Mass team, like this is the only team in Western Mass. And interestingly enough, the fire service is actually, when the international, when they were looking, for someone to do this around, it was Department of Fire Services that said, yeah, we'll take that on. So it was actually the fire service that brought CISM into the first responders in this area in Massachusetts. Okay. I think it took a longer time for the police side of things to really embrace it. Over the last few years, we've actually seen more police officers getting involved with CISM teams than, at least in my experience in our area, than the fire service. Like it used to be kind of a lot of fire people, maybe a couple cops. Now it's sort of flipped. And I think we're back to kind of getting a few more fire people in. But there was a while where it was like there just suddenly wasn't that many fire guys, or they were, people who were retired from the fire service, which is fine because a lot of people do these teams and stuff once they've retired.
I was going to say
they kind of, people start to realize like they want to give back, and as you're well aware, like it's a big part of your identity, who you are it's who you are as a person, but it's what it's what you do, it's who you are, like, so it's a big deal. And so both on the fire and PD side, we get a lot of retirees or people closer to retirement. You come in and you're kind of young and, you don't have, like, you're invincible, right? So you don't necessarily spend as much time thinking about that. And then after you've had a lot of experience and you're like, some of this really sucks. And you start seeing either yourself or people you care about struggling and having a hard time with things, you start to realize that this is something you need, like we all need to embrace, and we need to deal with it in a more productive and proactive fashion. What's nice is the new people coming through the fire academy, the police academy, I believe, the EMT schools, paramedic schools, they are actually learning about CISM while they're going through these programs. So it's been much more accepted over the last few years, where people are starting to be like, we need to, right from the start, we need to bring this in. And I think generationally as a whole, the younger folks now, anyone probably 20 or less, maybe 25 or less, has been actively talking about mental health, like throughout their life, which for me, being old, we didn't do that, that wasn't a thing. And if you did, it was there was a lot of stigma attached to it. And sometimes there still is stigma attached to it, but not the way it used to be. And I think the goal is to try to minimize that stigma as much as we can and eventually eradicate it, so that we're just able to talk about these things, and maybe we won't have quite so many issues, because the first responder world tends to have a lot of substance abuse issues. Unfortunately, there is a lot of suicide in, especially in the police side of things, the fire service side of things. Oftentimes in the fire service, it's very, right after retirement is a very vulnerable time, because again, you are just so locked into that identity, and now you're just like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what my purpose is anymore. I think, I could be wrong, but I think that the reason you probably see more of that with active duty PD and then like retired Fire service is just that sort of communal bond, right? Like, so PD, they're usually alone, or maybe they have a partner, but they're doing these things, they're going and they're sitting in a cruiser alone. Even, they're having struggles at home, whatever, financially, whatever it may be, they're sitting in a cruiser alone thinking about this all day long. The fire service, we always have a buddy, right? Like, you're not going into a fire alone. You're not going to an ambulance call alone. You have that group. And even if it's only maybe a couple of you on the call, even when you come back, now there's everybody around the table and they're there to support you. And just to be able to sort of hash things out and just talk about things and just be like, even if you're not like, oh my goodness, that sucked and I'm so upset. Like, you don't have to say that. You don't even have to be feeling that. But the fact that you get to just kind of talk it out a little bit, run it through your head and get it out, I think that makes a huge difference.
And that's something that we had talked about, actually in the last episode with Matt and Zach. We had talked about, the cops not having that ability to come back to something. They just have to go, okay, on to the next call, right? And then we kind of, even if we are on to the next call, like if we're in the ambulance, we still have our partner. And we're just like, hey, whatever it is, that call kind of, bothered me a little bit. You talk to him for a second, or you have a minute from call B, call A to call B. Whereas the cops, they don't have that. And I didn't actually tie in that, you said like in the fire service with retirees and like that right after you retire spot. I didn't really, mesh those two things together, because that makes sense now that you think about it. When you have, when we're looking at the cops and they're being by themselves, yep. Now you go from being a guy or a gal with, all these people that you could talk to about all these things, to being like, oh, okay, well, sure, I can talk to, like, if you have a significant other, you can talk to them, but do they understand? Like, some people don't have, firefighters as husbands, or, firefighters as wives, or, my wife she's a corrections officer, and I feel like sometimes there's things that happen here, like, in the job, that I can't really talk to her about, because does she understand? Maybe a little bit. I've been doing this for quite some time, and we've been together for a while. Like, maybe she would understand a little bit, but there are some things that I'm just like, I don't know if, like, do you get what I'm saying? And if you do, like, can you respond if I, like, need you to, like, tell me something?
Yeah.
And, like, you have that. When you're at the firehouse, you have that with, like, these guys, whether it's, sometimes guys will just be like, whatever, and all you need is just going to sit there and get, for a lack of a better term, made fun of. I don't know. Maybe that's what you need. I don't know. Or as Matt put it, maybe you just need to be, kicked to see if you're still there, right? Like, if you're acting off, then a guy just needs to be, like, a little, needs a little bit of that, normalcy.
Yeah, and I'll get back to the CO part, because I was actually going to bring up the COs as well. Okay. And I think sometimes, like you say, like, where you're just, nobody's necessarily, holding your hand, or, we're not sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya. No. Like that's not what we do. very, very clearly, that is not what we do. No. But, sometimes it's just the ability to, have either see that somebody maybe they're not quite dealing with this as well as others are, and if you just take that time to be like, just clock it that person maybe isn't quite as okay, and then you can either talk it through and then they're fine, or it gives you the ability to just put it in your mental bank that you can check in with them later. Sometimes it's not even like, you have calls that you're fine with, or you're like, yeah, that sucked, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. But I've had times where I've just like, I've heard about people on our department or another department that I'm friends with or something that did a real crappy call. And I'll just send them a text like, hey, I'm so sorry you had to do this. Like, if you need anything, I'm here. But in the meantime, like, I know this sucked. You did everything you could, and I'm sorry. Like, it had a crappy outcome. And they're like people will be like, geez, that was really nice that somebody cared enough to even just acknowledge that this happened.
And sometimes that's
that's really all you yeah. Sometimes it's not about, I need to, spend 3 hours talking about this, or, sometimes you do, and sometimes you need to, go break something or sit down and cry, like whatever. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes it's just someone acknowledging that something shitty happened that you were part of, just is like popping the balloon, right? Like you can just be like, okay, like someone else realizes this is terrible. I'm not the only one who thinks this is horrible, and I don't know how to process it, right? Like, I'm trying not to like jump around a little bit here,
That's
but
all right. Hey,
but
it's a conversation.
So I was going to bring up actually the COs, because they maybe have been doing this for a long time. I don't know. It's fairly recent for me to see the COs really, and they seem to really be embracing like peer support. And again, maybe they've been doing it for a really long time, and that's why they are so, part of it. And I just didn't know it, because I don't have a lot of contact with that world. They're sort of their own little entity. So, but I think what I see in the corrections world is they're almost a blend of the two worlds as far as their law enforcement, but they have other people with them, right? Like they're not sitting in a cruiser alone. Mm-hmm. They have other folks with them. The difference is they are 100% of the time they are in a predatory environment. So like I don't know that you see as many real long careers, like 40 years as a CO, as opposed to like 20 years, right? Like you can see 40 years as a cop, a firefighter, whatever, right? But I think it's incredibly difficult, and I don't think that the rest of us really grasp how hard it is to go into work every day knowing that, like, even if you're pretty well liked, you're still the enemy, right? Like, and there's a whole lot more of them than there are of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a very difficult environment to be in. So, I think that's extremely stressful. I think that there are a lot of issues with, substance abuse, maybe even domestic violence, that kind of thing in that world. And that's not me knocking corrections, but I'm saying, like, I think it's a very stressful place to live every day. Like I couldn't do it.
No.
Like it's not a place. Yeah, it's not
nope,
not a place that I would ever want to be. Not something I would want to do. Like
I don't even like going there.
Oh, I was going to say, like we go there fairly regular, and it is not a place I have any desire to ever go. Like, that being said, I've met and worked with a lot of the people who work at Hamden County Corrections, and they're wonderful. Like, they're great people, and a lot of them honestly seem to be in a really good place, and they're happy, and like they're just out there living their life, like.
I would say that they, a lot of the people do, like you said, they don't have to do like the, 35, 40 years like that, we do. Mm-hmm. They go in there, they do their 20, 25 years, and then they're like, okay. And they have like again, it's a hard 25 years, mm-hmm. right? To be in that place for that long. Yeah. And my wife is, she's been there for 13 years now. And it's, she can see, she doesn't tell me this often, but she can see like that light at the end of the tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, in your head, you're halfway there. Yeah. Right? Whereas sometimes we do have that, even, again, 13 years on now, and for most people, that's like halfway, and me, I'm only like a third, right? I'm a third of the way to the end. Knock on wood, I make it that far, and we, get...
But the difference is, you ask anyone about the fire service, and what is the first thing they tell you?
Best job
Greatest job in the world.
That's it.
Right? Like,
I get
so it's a totally different mindset,
it is,
like...
Is. And that's why I said more power to my wife, and immediately when I found out, that she'd only have to do 25 years, and I had told her, I'm like, you know what, you do your 25 years and you get out.
Yeah.
Because if you get to 25 years at the time where she was, which was a max facility, and she's not in a female facility, she's in a male facility. Now she's at a, whatever, I think it's medium security, whatever. But at the time I was like, you do your 25 years, get out, and then you can do whatever you want. Enjoy your retirement, and she'll be in her 40s. And the good thing about it is when she retires, even though I'll still be working, we have 5 days off. So I can enjoy her retirement with her.
Right.
And I think that's another luxury of the fire department. But again, to get back on mental health, a little unknown fact is back in, so I graduated high school in 2006, and I went on to get my bachelor's.
Just a baby.
Yeah. I went on to, get my bachelor's degree at Anna Maria College, and one of the classes I took early on was a critical incident stress management class, and I did actually get a certificate out of the class, and that's something I don't talk about a lot. But at the time, like you said, we're talking early 2000s. That's like right when it was starting to become more acceptable.
Right.
It's still new, still kind of like, people didn't really know what to think about it. A lot of people in the class were like, well, I don't know what this is. Even me, I was like, what is this? I don't understand. The guy that taught it, I can't remember his name, but he was a big CISM guy. And we all went through the class, and when that class was done, I kind of had a feeling that this was something that I would be passionate about, because it is not, it's something that affects all of us one way or the other, right? Like you said, some people treat it differently. Like you could be the guy that goes out or the girl that goes out and, drinks and, copes with it in whatever way they do, or the guy who goes to the gym every day or tries to stay busy and never sleep, whatever. And it could happen to anybody. And it doesn't really matter how, long you were on the job or how short you've been on the job. It could be, like you said, any call, the way you perceive that call. And I think that was something that really drove home with me, as a guy who then soon after that, before I was even on the fire service, was dealing with things like depression, anxiety, some drinking, not to the extent as later on when I dealt with it again, but something that I've been open with about. There were different times, obviously now doing much better and everything's fine, but, depression and things like that are something that, again, with this podcast, we've been trying to tell people, like, if you have those issues or you're struggling with something, the importance of talking to somebody is, overwhelming, because you can't, even though you might think you can do it, and here I am getting on a little bit of a rant, if you think you can do it by yourself, maybe you can, but why wouldn't you want somebody else to walk that, or help you with that struggle, down the road? And that's kind of where, now fast forward to not too long into the job. I want to say maybe I was on for like 5 years or so. Time is like, I can't, whatever, but we get on and we do a call, and I'm not going to get into any like really specifics, but it was a younger individual, myself, and another guy in our department were on the call, and this was the first time I ever got to experience the team coming out and a debriefing, and it was for a younger gentleman. He unfortunately hung himself, and my partner and I were the paramedics that went to the scene. There's kind of like, and you can kind of go on this a little bit more, but there's kind of like certain things that are like an automatic, hey, are you okay? Or should we be like, hey, it's time to bring the team in, give them a call. And, kids and everything to that extent is, like almost like it feels like an automatic thing. Is that true?
Yeah, so there's like 10 sort of criteria or incidents that are considered like these are the big ones that you really, really probably need to be bringing the team in. Mm-hmm. And there are things like young and, children, babies, that kind of thing. Like victim known to responder, line of duty death, prolonged extrication with a poor outcome. So there's, like I say, there's 10 of them. There's a whole list. So those are kind of the ones that you immediately it's like, yeah, you bring someone. Like this isn't a, hey, like, do you want to talk? Like this is just we're going to bring these people in. We don't force people to participate in CISM. We encourage it strongly, but we don't force people to do it. And even if we can get people willing to just go, even if they don't want to talk, like you can go, you can still get something out of it. Mm-hmm. Talking, you're going to get more out of it. And honestly, the other people around are going to get more out of it because everybody's sort of locked into not only their own role in that call, but they're also locked into their own perception. So if you have, other people there explaining either their role or why they did what they did or couldn't do what they didn't do or what their perception is of how this went down, it allows the whole group, a little more cohesive and like, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now that was so bothering me. I didn't know why that happened that way. Like, so, but again, you can go to a debriefing and not talk other than they usually ask you to say just like who you are and what your role was there. Yeah. And then beyond that, if you don't want to say anything, then you don't have to say anything. And
it was surprising because when I was, like I said, I've only been involved in this one particular one, and it was not necessarily, I did speak, but after I spoke, to hear everybody after me say a lot of the similar things and what was like, not necessarily bothering you, but like, I think they asked what was like the most, I don't know, memorable or like what's really like etched in your mind from the call. And when a lot of people was saying the same thing as me, I kind of found myself being like, all right, well, at least I'm not the only one. And I could see that, like, if I had gone there and not said anything but heard everybody say that, I would, like you said, would still get something out of it.
Right.
Where there's that, like, commonality, maybe that's not even a word, but commonality of it. And I think that sometimes it is as simple as that, as, okay, and we had talked about this before, it's, making it normal to you, that it's normal for me to react this way. Because even after all these times, it's like, why is it? I think a lot of people struggle with the why is it this one?
Right.
Right? Again, easy to say, all right, this is a kid, and that one's kind of an easy one. But like if you were to do a call and then for some reason you just feel weird after it, right?
And sometimes it's, you could have 10 people on a call and only one person is affected by it. You could have 9 people affected and one person isn't. A lot of it is just sort of where you are in life and in your own headspace at that time. You might have either a whole lot of stress going on at home, or you could have, you could have just lost, a pet or a family member or something. So you're just vulnerable already. Yeah. Or, maybe this person looked exactly like a family member or something. You get a lot of like, someone, maybe you're 38 years old and, just had your 38th birthday, or you're approaching your 38th birthday and you go to a call and it's for this seemingly healthy 38-year-old that just had an MI and died. And then like now you're having this crisis, like, oh my word, like I'm young, they're the same age as me, like, so there's so many different reasons why these things could happen. And I think for me, a lot of it is because we can't erase what happened. We can't take that away. Like this is what we do. And yeah, you're going to expose yourself to probably more bad things than the average person, but the average person is going to go through struggles as well. Like that's just part of life. That's how you grow. And it's just the circle we live in, right? Like people are going to die, people are going to get hurt, people are going to get sick. Like it happens. Natural disasters happen. Like bad things happen in this world. We now have to figure out how to, not only live through them, but actually thrive on the other side. And for me, a lot of it is trying to ensure that, at the other end of this, you're still, that we are all thriving and we're all having a good life, and that you don't have a situation of, you're whatever, like I don't even know, like maybe you went to I don't know, like a race, like a 5K or something, or a marathon, right? And somebody, something happens, like, the Boston Marathon would be a big incident.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's possible to go to another marathon and not have that come back to you. But like, you had a young person had some sort of medical emergency and died during that race, right? Like just whatever, like a 10K. I don't want people, 6 years from now to be at like their child's track meet, or and I guess that's not even, like another 10K or something, and be like, now they can't function.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to go away. We're not going to, this isn't Men in Black. Like I can't erase your brain and you don't remember it happened. But I still want you to be able to function. I still want you to be able to go to, a soccer game and be okay and not freak out, It's that part of it. It's that part of not getting locked into it, that you can now function in your life. You can enjoy life, like that. Despite something bad happening, you can still bring joy into your life.
Yeah.
You can find things to do that make you happy. Like everybody, hopefully, should have some kind of a hobby or something they like to do outside of work. Like work is work, and I am a huge, huge proponent from the way that I was raised in the fire service. I am big in, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is not a clock in, clock out. And I know it is for a lot of people now, and that I have a hard time with that personally, because that's not how I was raised in the fire service. Like, for me, this is a 24/7 thing, and these are people that their family, that we're here to help them. Like, you need a new roof on your house, we're going to go help you put a new roof on your house, kind of a thing. Like, that's just the way I was raised. And it's very hard for me oftentimes to reconcile the fact that that's not how it is for a lot of people now. But that being said, I still believe that even though for me, I believe that there should be that much dedication, there still has to be something else. You're well aware, as everyone in the fire department is, that my husband and I do ballroom dance. It's, everybody likes to, they make fun of me some, but I think they probably make fun of him more, but,
We've accepted it.
But like, we love it. We have a great time. Yeah. Like, we're not very good at it, but like, we're surprisingly not good at it for how long we've been doing it, but that's okay.
Don't be modest.
But it's
like,
it's something that we can do together, that doesn't involve work, that doesn't involve, talking about calls. It doesn't even involve dealing with children or, whatever stresses are going on in your family life. Like, you get to just go and dance, right? Like, and you're together, you're doing something together. We have a great time. We we built this table. Like we do a little bit of woodworking here and there, not a lot. And again, we're not great at it, but we like to do those kinds of things together. Sometimes we do them alone, like he'll make a sign or I'll make something or whatever. Like, we have those other things in our lives. For us, we have a farm. Like, the animals are really big in our world. I'm a big advocate for animals, for mental health. My dog was on the team, the CISM team with me for many years. He's retired now, but he's getting up there in years and he's continued to do it even after losing his leg to cancer. He did it for a couple of years beyond that, but now he's starting to get where it's just a little too tough for him. So he's retired now, which is upsetting to me, but he's still here with us.
Still a joy to have around, for sure.
Yeah, we still have 3 dogs climbing on us when we sit on the couch. Like, that's a big deal. We take the dogs for hikes all the time and get outside. And, for me, my entire life, outdoors has been a place to be, whether I was out, trail riding on a horse or I was hunting or fishing or whatever. Like, that's a big deal for me, or hiking with the dogs. Like that's kind of that's where I clear my head and just do my thing. Honestly, mowing my lawn, like, I get on the mower and just go do my thing, and that actually kind of just lets me just escape everything else, and like.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've talked about a little bit too, is the need to have, not necessarily a separation, like you said, but like you
just an outlet.
Yeah, you need to have that mindset to, like, for me personally, my mindset is when I'm at work, like, I'm all about it. Mm-hmm. And I love the fire department, and being a firefighter is great and everything. I love it. But when I go home, like, it is literally the last thing I talk about. Because I watch my wife, and sometimes they need this. So, like, I let her do it. But, like, to come home and I watch my wife just let things that happen at work just really bother her. Mm-hmm. And her way of dealing with it is coming home and venting to me. As much as I am like, I hate to see her upset and I don't like talking about work at home, like, I let my wife just vent. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's what she needs. Sometimes it helps her, and sometimes it doesn't. And I try to get her. There was a time where she was very, like, work was bothering her at her old facility. She was having all these issues with different people, whatever. She came home. She was like, kept talking about it. And one time I was just like, have you ever thought about just, like, leaving it at the door? Like, get yourself in the mindset of, like, when you walk out of this building, just none of these people matter anymore. Like, now you come home and and she tried it.
I was going to ask how well that went over.
she tried it, and maybe it lasted all of, like, half the day. But yeah, and I kind of, like you said, I put myself in that mindset to be, what she needs to, get through that. Because mm-hmm. she needs to vent about it. And I understand that more now. So, like, I let it happen. Whereas me, like, something bad could happen and my wife will ask me how's work, and I just say busy. Because, I mean, it's not a lie. It is always busy. We do all sorts of stuff. But it's not like the stuff that we do on a regular basis has now become commonplace, right? So, like, all these medicals that are just run-of-the-mill medicals are just that to us as we become mm-hmm. complacent with, that type of work. But that doesn't mean that, it's going to, like, down the road something's going to happen and I'm not going to be upset about it. Mm-hmm. And then when that happens, I do find myself saying, hey, it was, whether it's with my partner or, with somebody, from home, certain things bother me more now than they did back when I first got on. And again, not to, like, really beat this to death here, but, kid calls, like the run-of-the-mill kid calls, I used to be, like, right through it. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, but now you have kids.
That's the thing. So now I have kids, and I find myself, even if it is just a basic, like, okay, my kid's having trouble breathing, whatever, whatever's going on, allergic reaction, I do find myself needing to like refocus because I look at a kid and I'm like, I see my kids and I'm like, okay. So there have been a couple of times where I've had to take a step back and be like, okay, it's not a huge deal. Like, the kid's going to be fine. We'll get him to the hospital. Everything's going to be fine.
Right.
And that never used to happen before. And like you said, you get your own set of kids, and now you're noticing it a little bit more so now. When my oldest was younger, we were in and out of the hospital for respiratory stuff, and I was still kind of good with all that. Even though it was my kid, I was, all right, we're doing inhalers, we're doing breathing treatments. He's got RSV, he's got bronchiolitis, he's got pneumonia. Yep. So like we dealt with that when he was young. He's better now, but recently my youngest son had had been sick for a while, and then he was not acting himself. We bring him in. He ended up needing a surgery, and that was tough. And like I said, I think there's a correlation between when my youngest son was born and how I act to some of these kid calls now. Again, some of them, no big deal. Mm-hmm. But I did a call. Kid looked almost, in my head, looked like my youngest son. And I was like, and then I kind of stepped back and I'm like, all right, I need a little bit to refocus. And on that occasion, I talked to, my partner at the time, and he's like, yeah, I could see you were a little bit bent out of shape, but, we got through it. Luckily, we had a third, whether it was a student or I think it might have been one of the new guys was still writing third. So he took care of most of it, and I just sat there and I was like, write my report, like try not to like look at it. I'm like, all right. But yeah, it is something that like even after all these years, it's just you don't know what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like I don't want to say the scary part of it, but that's the necessity of things like, the resources that we have, like the CISM team and other programs, outlets, and stuff like that. I think that shows even a more necessity for it.
Yeah, and like you say, like where you don't necessarily want to talk to your wife about like what happened at work. Sometimes it's a matter of you don't want to put that on someone. Mm-hmm. Right? Like it's bad enough you had to be part of it. You don't want to put that in their brain. Yep. Right? Like, so you just, you don't talk about it. But so the CISM outlet gives you the ability to talk to someone. And they're not, the team is not strictly for you had a bad call. Like you can reach out if you're struggling at home or, something like that. There's something going on that you're just really having a hard time with, and it's causing you some sort of real mental anguish or distress. Like, you can call and, we'll get someone to talk to you. I can't necessarily fix it. I'm not going to be able to pay your bills for you, right? Like, or stop you from getting a divorce or something like that. But there's someone who can, kind of talk to you and help you out or point you towards more resources. The team has, they have vetted, not therapists that work with, or clinicians that work with the team necessarily, but they, they're in the area. Mm-hmm. And like, so if need be, we can give some names to someone. Like we can't necessarily get you past, like, you need to talk to someone. We're not the right people. Mm-hmm. But we have clinicians that have been vetted that are able to talk to people in this field, to talk to, like, they've dealt with military, they dealt with first responders, like that kind of thing, because it is a very different world, and it's not great if you go to talk to your therapist and you get done with your session and your therapist is crying and you're like holding them and patting them on the back, like that's not a great thing.
Yeah.
So they have clinicians that are able to work with people in this field. So that's a really big deal because in the past that wasn't always the case. And it you now end up more catastrophic than if we had just left you alone to walk the streets on your own and figure it out, right? Like, and that's where, programs like the Struggle Well program come in. They're not necessarily the same thing as the CISM in the sense of we had a significant incident, we're going to talk about that specific incident. Struggle Well is more of an overall wellness, again, just about getting past the big things in life and being resilient and being able to really go on to a great life. Like to be not angry all the time, to be not sad all the time, to be, not withdrawn from your family or your friends, like not using substances, like not that you can't have a drink, but for people who are drinking excessively or, using other substances to get through their day. So the Struggle Well program is much more, like I say, like an all-encompassing sort of a lifestyle versus the CISM will, we can help you with those kinds of things. And there are certainly resources that have been in this area for a long time. There's On-Site Academy. There's Brattleboro has a uniformed services division. Like there's places around that specifically work with first responders, who are struggling in some significant way. So those have been around for a long time in this area. Struggle Well is relatively new. It's a relatively new program anyways, but it's relatively new to this area. It's been maybe, I want to say roughly 2 years or so that it's been in Massachusetts. I first heard about it, excuse me, it was a class at one of the CISM conferences, like not last April, the one before. And I tried to get into it then, not knowing what it was at all. I just thought it was just a regular CISM class, and I was, go in there. I was going to learn what to, how to handle people in whatever environment. They're having a bad day. This is another way to talk to them or whatever. I wasn't able to get into that class, so it took about 6 months before I got into one of the 2-day classes. And so they do 2-day classes, they do 5-day classes, and they do the 5-day retreat. So I got into the 2-day class and I got in there and it just so happened that, we were actively in probably the shittiest time of our lives. And so I drove to the Cape, and the whole time, I'm driving all the way to the Cape, and this is just playing through my brain, everything that's going on at home. So I was fairly fragile at the time.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So I got there and I sat down, and the room is like set up in a horseshoe, and I walked in, and there wasn't a lot of people there. And I sat down like in the middle of the horseshoe, so I could look right at the screen, like, so I'm like right like this, I got a great seat, right? And like the guides come in and they introduce themselves, and then they start talking, and they're like telling their stories, and I'm like, the first one, like, he does his thing, he tells his story. I'm like, oh wow, that's rough. Like he had a bad go. And then the next one starts telling his story, and I'm like, he also had a bad go. And I now see where this is going, and I don't like it. And then the third guy tells his story. Also not a great story. And now they're going to go around the room. And like everybody's going to kind of tell who they are, what they're doing there, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I am like the anxiety is just through the roof at this point, because I'm like, there's no way for me to get out of here.
No,
and I don't want to do this. Like, and they're supposed to like kind of tell them like who you are, like what you do for work, and then I'm sorry, and my eye is all watery or something. So, and then you tell them like I think like something you're struggling with and what you're looking to get out of the class or why you took the class or something like that. And I'm like, I took this class thinking it was something for me to bring back to do like debriefings or whatever. Like, now this is about me. I had no idea what this class was, and this was not what I signed on for. And I was like, oh, for the love of all that is holy. Like, it was a very stressful day for me, but it was a wonderful, wonderful program. And I was like, we need, I said to the guy, I said, we should be teaching our kids this. Like, this should be a class in school. And he was like, funny you say that. They're actually doing a pilot program. They're setting it up to do at like 1 or 2 colleges around. Personally, I think what they're doing, they should be doing in like middle school, high school, because it's not, this isn't new information. Like, this isn't, some of it's new in the sense of it's the way it's looked at and you know, it's presented in a more user-friendly, sort of a, I don't know, sort of a blue-collar way, right? Yeah. Like just an average guy kind of a thing. But it's been around, like the idea of post-traumatic growth has been around for a long time. There's a couple of professors and whatever that did this and were kind of, I won't say they were shunned, but they didn't get a lot of play from what they were doing until kind of this program came along and has really now really embraced this post-traumatic growth. And and the class is fantastic, but again, it's a very whole life approach. Yeah. So there's, you know, like if you're struggling mentally, then everything else falls apart. Like, so they have like the triangle or whatever. It's a triangle, but it's got a fourth piece to it. But but like, so if one leg of the triangle isn't okay, then the whole thing, you know, like, so it's like, you know, financial, spiritual, mental, and like physical. So like, you could have a ton of money, and you could be like, think you're pretty happy, but if physically you're not in good shape, whether you're sick or you're just not where you want to be physically, it brings everything else down. Like, you're still not, you know, it affects how you feel about yourself. It affects how you feel about life. Like, so you're still not living your best life. You're still not that whole, really, truly happy, really, really thriving person. Mm-hmm. You could have a great job. You could be in great shape. You could be, you know, you're pretty happy about everything other than financially. You're in the toilet. It affects everything else. So their goal is to, you know, have a whole wellness approach, and it is a mental health side of things, but it's very, like I say, it's all inclusive. Yeah, to be able to live a great life and to deal with not just the incidents that you had as a first responder, but maybe you had a crappy childhood, or maybe, you know, something else happened. Like we're gonna let go of this stuff. We're gonna deal with it, and we're gonna find a way to get past that and let it go and move on and have a great life. Like, and that's really what it's about. And that's like the old metaphor of the rocks in the backpack. It is. It is. The rocks in the backpack. Yeah. Yep. I like. There's a couple others. Like, there's like the iceberg, right? Okay. Like, you see the tip of the iceberg. You see this much. There's this much under the water, right? Or like a beach ball. You push a beach ball down under the water. Push it. And when it lets go, it goes, it's like a volcano, right? Like, so, like, all of that, the CISM side of things, the struggle well side of things, they're all trying to alleviate some of either the rocks in the rucksack, or the stuff below the surface that you're just building up,
Yeah,
because sooner or later it has to go somewhere. You can only take so much. It's the whole straw that broke the camel's back, right? Which again is why you could have one person affected by a call that didn't affect anyone else, because they have maxed out their cup of water, and that one extra drop, it's spilling over. Like, you just can't contain it anymore. So we try to get rid of
all that
as much as we can so that there's room, because more is coming. More's coming. It's not, as long as you're living, more's coming, right? Sure. So you have to make sure that you're emptying some of that out, so there's a place for that to go. And to be able to have better coping skills so that you can handle more, right? So your cup isn't this big, your cup is now this big. Yeah. And it's dispersed, and now instead of it being right at the top, it's only that far up, right? So that's kind of the ultimate goal for all of these programs, is really just to get rid of some crap and give you skills to live a better life.
For sure. So with that, and as we get here towards the end here and wrap it up a little bit, we're going to put in the descriptions, I'll put the links for both the CISM team and as well as the Struggle Well program in there in the descriptions. So if anyone here who's listening to this, if that's something that they want to look into more, whether it's the need of it or if they're interested in even becoming a part of it or getting involved more in that kind of stuff, we'll have those links at the bottom here. So again, with this wrapping up, is there anything that you kind of want to leave us off with, or?
No, I mean, I think I said most of, what, I mean, I'm sure I rambled quite a bit, but,
rambling happens.
but I will say, I don't have to, say anything because you're going to put the links up and whatever, but certainly if anyone needs anything, reach out to the Western Mass CISM team, or as far as Struggle Well, there's a book. They actually have a book called Struggle Well. Okay. And you can go, I think it's on Amazon. I'm not even sure if you can buy it through, you maybe can buy it now. I think they have a store open or something through the Struggle Well website. Okay. But even if you can't, there is a book that you can buy on Amazon, and it will take you through the whole program. Okay. They'll give you the book if you do the class, but sometimes the classes, it's such a well-received program that the classes are filling up. They can be really hard to get into. They can be hard to even just find them, because by the time you even know about them, they're already filled up, and the corrections world in Massachusetts is really embracing this. I think their goal is to have every CO in Massachusetts have this training. So they run a lot of them, but they also fill up, because they're doing it mostly for their people. Not that no one else can do it, but I did the 2-day class, came home, there were a few people I had in mind that I was I really would love them to do this 5-day retreat. My husband ended up eventually doing the 2-day class, and then he did the 5-day retreat, and I'm actually going in 2 weeks or something to the 5-day retreat as well, because it's just that good of a program. I truly believe in what it's doing, and I'm not going because I have some huge issue I'm struggling with. I don't think that, part of me is I don't even know why I'm doing this, because somebody else obviously needs this more than I do, and I'm taking someone else's spot. But it's just that good of a program, and to really just help you with yourself to live a better life, and to help other people live a better life. Yeah. So, I forgot where I was going with that. Okay. But anyways, so they do have, like I say, they have a book, and then they have these different programs. They actually started with the military. That was how they got their start. And they still do the military. It's called Warrior Path. They do that for the military. They actually do like a retreat for families of military folk. And then Struggle Well is specifically the first responders program. So I would encourage anyone, if they have the ability to get into one of those classes, to absolutely, like, it is 100% worth it. Whether you think you have anything you're struggling with or not, it's just a great program. And yeah, don't hesitate to call the CISM team if you need it, and you'll have the number and website and all that up there. So.
Yeah. So again, I'll be putting all the links up for this stuff. I'll put the link up for the book on Amazon when I find it. But yeah, again, Jan, thank you. Like we were saying at the beginning, you know, this channel's been a huge advocate for, you know, talking, communicating, and if you need more than that, these are the types of resources that you can look into. So again, thank you for opening your home. Thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your stories, as well as your experiences with the both the team and with the Struggle Well program. And you can expect conversations like this and on every episode of the Gabbin with Goody podcast.
Well, thank you.